Hi, I'm Taylor.
I'm Amy.
I'm Santino.
And I'm Noelle. And who's ready to travel?
Beyond the borders.
Here we will share everything you need to know about studying abroad.
With tips and tricks from students who've been there, done that.
We'll cover it all, packing like a pro, navigating culture shocks, tackling language barriers, and so much more.
Thinking about studying abroad or just want to tag along? Follow us on our social media platforms at beyondtheborders.pod so you'll know exactly when we launch and catch all the fun along the way.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first episode of our podcast. Today, we have Dr. Palis, who is our Vice President of Global Education and Study Abroad at High Point University. He's going to talk a little bit about the programs here and how he helps our students find possibilities and opportunities to kind of get the study abroad program situated.
To start off, could you tell us a little bit about your role and what you do in global education?
So I've been here now for just about 9 years, or going on my 9th year. In the Office of Global Education, I'd call it a three-footed stool, right? The foot of the stool that students come into contact most with is about study abroad, right? These are opportunities for our students to earn academic credit while going abroad for a short period of time. It could be 2 weeks, 4 weeks, a full semester. But that's not all we do. And so we'd like to make sure that everyone understands that we are also the home of our international students. And it's crucial to our mission that we provide support and services for international students coming to campus to make them as successful as they can be here and support them through all their endeavors. And the third stool that we do, a third foot of our stool, would be just kind of cross-cultural programming on campus. You know, we help out with things like the Chinese New Year. We have an annual Ramadan iftar dinner to support our Muslim Student Association and interfaith community on campus. So again, study abroad is the way that people mostly interface with us, but we also like to make sure folks know that we are the home of our international students. We love and support our international students, and of course, some of the cultural programming that comes out of our office.
Yeah, that's just a question I was thinking of right now. How do you market to these international students? Because I live here in Raleigh, and I didn't know about High Point until my senior year of high school when someone came out and represented the school. So how do these people in other countries find out that High Point exists?
Yeah, well, I mean, if it's exchange programs, well, that comes through our office, right? Because we sign agreements with universities to exchange students back and forth, and we have to kind of balance the exchange over X number of years. So we're sending the same number of students to the University of Stirling in Scotland as they're sending to us. So that's pretty easy. For the degree-seeking students, our Office of Admissions has a small team of international recruiters, so to speak, or directors of international missions. And they go just like our domestic recruiters go to high schools and education fairs and open houses and stuff. They go all over the world doing that to bring students to HBU.
So, Dr. Palis, you obviously seem very passionate about this. What drew you into the international education?
So, you know, I got into it at a really young age. Both my parents were educators, but they kind of had this thing where they were both working days. So my mom said, "How about I get a job in the evening?" So, you know, she could be home during the day, then my dad could be home at night. Okay. Her job in the evenings ended up being with this new startup airline in North Carolina called Piedmont Airlines. So she did actually like reservations and customer service for this airline. I mean, so she selfishly gave up her career as a special needs educator in order to be home with me and then have this opportunity to work in the evenings, which then gave us free flying. So I'm talking 6, 7, 8 years old. We got to fly what we call non-rev with Piedmont Airlines. I used to joke with my friends, again, from North Carolina. I had been to Paris twice before I'd ever been to Myrtle Beach. Because why not? We could fly for free. It wasn't like we had this like crazy rich lifestyle, but I was exposed to other cultures at a very young age. And I remember my father worked at a camp in like Pennsylvania or something when he was a kid, and he stayed friends with one of the counselors who was Dutch. And one of my earliest memories, you know, again, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, just going to the Netherlands and being dropped off with this family that my dad knew from when he was in his 20s and say, "Oh, here, go play with the Dutch kids," you know, and it just very soon you realize that we're the same, yet, wow, this is fascinating because we're also a little bit different. And that just got into me at a very, very young age. And it's something that honestly I probably took for granted throughout most of my life. And then when I finished graduate school, I had this epiphany somehow that wouldn't it be great to give other people the same opportunities that I was fortunate to have? You know, I got lucky because my mom, you know, sacrificed her career to work evenings and it worked in an airline and I got to travel. A lot of people don't have those opportunities. And for those lucky enough to make it to college and for lucky enough to be able to afford a study abroad experience or be able to apply for scholarships for study abroad, I want to make sure that they have the support that I had, the opportunities that I had, because I know how much it changed me and benefited me.
Yeah. So, what do you think is a valuable experience for students studying abroad? Obviously, I guess having all of the experiences that you've had when you were young, and at least for me, I mean, just really makes me put everything into a different perspective. Just how like different it is, and just how to like appreciate all of the culture and the food and just different lifestyles.
I mean, I say, and it's best from your words because you're the students who have taken these opportunities. But what I like to see the most is, okay, yeah, you earned academic credit or you did this and that. That's great. I like to see how you grow as individuals. I like to see how you become independent and resilient. Going abroad's not easy, right? There's some days are hard, right? It's your challenges. You become independent. You become resilient. You become someone who can thrive and succeed in challenging environments and new environments, willing to take on challenges, willing to try new things. I just think that makes you such a more interesting and such a more qualified person, as we say at High Point, for the world as it's going to be. So that independence, that growth, that personal development that I see from study abroad, you can't put a price tag on that. And it's not something you could just get out of a classroom either. It's just the being over there and in this new environment and having to adapt. I mean, would you say something similar to
I was
that?
gonna say yes, totally. I also just studied my master like just past May in Italy, and that like changed my whole like perspective of even just traveling in itself. Even if I go to Florida, and that's even a big like travel sense. And I think just by going into a new country, like you have so many different culture shocks too. Like not even just like the food and everything else like that itself, but just like the experience and the schedule time wise, and like how everyone has their own different paths of where they shop and all that things like that. So I think, and then going back like to like the United States, like that is very shocked too, because like you wouldn't really expect everything to be like so organized, and the people are very like nice and friendly and stuff. And then when you come back here, everything's like chaotic, fast paced, like nothing that you really would expect anywhere else.
Yeah, it's like the reverse culture shock when you come back home. There's actually a sort of a scientific term for it. It's called enculturation through acculturation. So enculturation is learning about yourself or learning about your culture. Acculturation is learning about something different, or acculturating, kind of adapting to something new. So as we acculturate, as we adapt to something new, we're actually also learning about ourselves and about our culture, what makes us who we are. And it comes back, I talk about having a lens, like where you're used to seeing things out of your own eyes. You put the glasses on, now you have a whole new perspective on things, both what you're seeing and what you're experiencing internally at home.
Yeah, I totally agree. Flying internationally is very different. Going through customs and especially just language barrier. I was in Spain last May for a Maymester, and definitely the language barrier was something to adjust because we were in a small town and not many people spoke English. And so it's really hard to kind of, make sure that they understand you, and you're also respecting them by not, trying to just like speak English and hope that they understand. And it's obviously the culture is very different. They would have a siesta around like 1 to 2 o'clock where everyone just like closes their restaurants, their stores, and they just kind of take a nap or take family time. And then they open back up again, which is very different than the US because, we're always going. I feel like it's a lot less relaxed in the US than in some other countries. So it's just so interesting to see that. And I definitely feel like I've grown as a person learning how to travel internationally as a group or, without like my parents, which is always like what I had done before. And so it's really, learning the obstacles of the process. So
going off of now we're going into like closer into summertime and everything, how has the whole like managing your time, trying to like try to find emails and like students with everything being like city, like obviously like study abroad from Maymester or the 2-week experience, how has that been?
Fortunately I like to work. So that helps this time of year. It's I'm fortunate in a way to do work that is also the life that I live, and it's something that I believe in. The old cliche about the widget salesman. Like, do you really believe in this widget you're selling? Or you're just selling the widget in order to, make money. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm lucky to do something that I care about. I'm lucky to be able to work with young people and provide them the opportunities to go abroad. So I don't mind those emails. Now, if you email me 6 times with the same question, then I'm going to start minding. So yeah, it's cyclical though. At the university right now, look, we've got, most of everything set for our groups going in May. It is March already. And is this podcast evergreen? Is somebody's going to listen to it in December? So that's not interesting. He's talking about March. So by now, just the cycle of it. We have groups going in May. It's less than 2 months out. So I've got everything. I've got everything booked. I've got flights booked. I've got hotels booked. I've got excursions booked. I've got everything paid. It's ready to go. Like, we are ready to rock and roll.
If you love what you do for your job, it's like you're not working a day in your life. And that's honestly kind of what you were just saying, that you enjoy it. And that's
to an extent now. We don't want to be too naive about that. But yes, 100% right. Yeah. I mean, it is what you do. It is a job where you're on call 24/7.
Yeah.
So there is that. So I have, again, I'm from North Carolina, from Winston-Salem. I have friends who work with Texas Pete, right? It's a hot sauce company based out of Winston-Salem, Garner Foods. They're not going to be called on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
Because somebody didn't get their hot sauce shipment. So, it is part of the job, especially when our groups are abroad. I'm on call 24/7 because if something happens or I need to be involved, so I have 2 phones, one personal and one at the university. And this one is blasted ringer 24/7, 365, and that's just what the job entails.
Yeah.
Of course.
I mean, obviously, if you're going abroad, there's unfortunately going to be things that happen, which I guess brings me to the next question is, what would you say the biggest challenge you face with students and participating in the study abroad programs?
Yeah, I mean, there's a barrier to entry with study abroad. It is a privilege.
Yeah.
Study abroad costs money. I wish 100% of students could be able to go abroad, but there are factors in play that don't allow that. I mean, it's an expensive pursuit.
It definitely was. I mean,
yeah. The second one, another sort of barrier to more students being able to go abroad is the academics, and as we expand as an institution, especially in some less common sort of study abroad areas, we have to design curriculum that allows students to be able to get their credits. This year we're really excited. We have an exercise science program, for instance. It's going to New Zealand and Australia. So those majors who haven't had a program in many years on study abroad are able to go abroad too. So, we've got to lower the barriers financially, but we also have to change the barriers a little bit academically to make sure that all students have the opportunity to go. I think once students go, as long as they have, a tolerance for ambiguity and they're resilient and they're able to adjust and adapt, things are going to be okay. It's just we have to be able to get them to that point. And if price is a barrier or academics are a barrier, then, we're not getting the students on the airplane to go abroad.
Yeah, I mean, at least for me, it was hard with the time change. And obviously you're studying abroad, so you're taking classes. So it's definitely a lot of effort to still, make sure that you're learning and also enjoying the culture, and doing both is honestly a lot to handle. And that could be very hard for some people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we do. I mean, we have a great Office of Fellowships and Awards on campus, Dr. Cotton, who can help students with scholarships. Certainly, we have the Go Global grant for the May term.
They got to bump that up. They got to do a little more.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that covers the tuition, so you still have to pay the program fee, right? And that program fee for a month, is a big chunk of change. Could include your flight and all of your activities, et cetera. So, yeah. I've worked at other kinds of, sizes of universities before where, we have to create different kinds of programs, shorter programs that might only be a week long, programs that are embedded within the semester, like a fall break program or a spring break program. And so, I mean, part of that is just being creative with programming in order to make study abroad as accessible as possible.
Yeah, which is honestly great. I know they have the New York in the City and the Chicago things, which is great. I mean, I knew coming in that it was definitely going to be a lot of money, but it's great for people to still experience something like that I did, or even for people who went abroad, just to get a little glimpse of it, because it's a great learning.
I've got a hot idea, and I'm working with Dr. Hall in Career and Professional Development as maybe an HPU in the city, international city. right?
Yeah, that would be
Because we
cool.
do HPU in the city and like in New York and Dallas and stuff like that. What about HPU in the city, London, or HPU in the city, Mexico City, or just something different for our students that could fit maybe into their schedules and fit into their finances. So these are the ideas that we're always trying to generate and innovate in order to make study abroad available.
Yeah, I mean, because obviously I went and it was so fun and woohoo, like I'm going abroad, but I really learned a lot from it. So I think it's great to, explore different options that are maybe cheaper that other people could explore just so they can learn that traveling aspect and just, the culture and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, just building on top of that with the learning part of it, I do have the privilege of going to Ireland this next week for sport and communication.
The Com Fellows program, yeah?
Yeah, I'm going on that. And
Cool.
for some reason, they couldn't fill it up, so they let a freshman go as well. And this freshman has been messaging me a lot, and he's treating it more like a vacation rather than like an experience to, connect with people there. And while studying abroad, I think it's important to note that it's not necessarily supposed to be a vacation. You're there for education as well. So
Yeah, we had a meeting today for the students going on what we call independent summer programs. So, okay, it didn't fit for me to go on a Maymester or a global experience with faculty. I can't go for a full semester. So what's a third way to go? Well, a summer program outside of HPU, but we know a lot of really good summer programs. We can help you transfer your credit. But with these summer programs, they tend to be 3 or 4 weeks with a class Monday through Thursday for maybe 3 hours a day, Monday through Thursday, and you get the weekends free. So the students are like, oh, every weekend I'm going to travel. I say, okay, yes. Also, that's going to be very expensive every weekend to travel. The other part of it is you're taking class too, right? So it really is a balancing act. Even with your Com Fellows program for 5 or 6 days to Ireland, yeah, you want to go out and do some things, but first and foremost, you are there to represent HBU. You're there to go to your conference. You're there for your academics. You're going with professors. So that's your top priority. So, but it is a balancing act because, I expect you to have some fun and do some things outside of the traditional academic experience when you're abroad. But it takes a level of maturity, I think, to be able to juggle that and manage both sides of that experience when you're abroad.
Yeah, and kind of like what Santino was saying about the freshmen, like kind of expecting it to be a vacation. As a marketing major, going abroad is super interesting because if you happen to have a business that's abroad, you have to adapt to how people are there. Some assignments that we had were out of the classroom. We went to a market, how they sold things differently, like all of these different body parts of animal, and it was super interesting. Or we went to this park and we wanted to just observe, and I kind of noticed that the parents were a little like kind of to themselves. They weren't really like talking. And I noticed that that's different. Like in the US, I feel like my mom would be like, oh, hi, like my daughter's this. And, so it's definitely not only just like sitting in the classroom, but like seeing how it is in other countries. And that really might not seem like just because I'm not sitting in the classroom at this second, I'm still kind of like figuring out what is different.
You're being a mindful tourist is what you're being, right?
Yes.
And tourist is a bad word. Tourist, like, oh, you're just there to like see the sights. You're not there to do anything serious. Well, you could be a mindful tourist. And a mindful tourist understands that they are a guest in somebody's country. They're not from there. But they're going to patiently observe and they're going to learn by just watching and immersing themselves. And there's nothing wrong with it. That's part of the experience. And sometimes when we go to Europe and we do one of these backpacking adventures, when we're one city to the next, to this hostel, to that hostel, we don't have time to sit down and be like, wow, look at these people in the park. That's interesting. But that's such an important part.
Especially if you go to McDonald's in the US versus Europe,
Sure.
They sell very different items. And that's because if you sold the things that they sell in the US, it wouldn't do as well. And so I guess that's just like the one like huge thing that I took away is, I always was learning it in the classroom while I was here, but going out into the world and really seeing it myself is really impactful.
My wife's a professor in geography at a university in Texas. And she always goes into the McDonald's when we travel to take pictures for her class just to kind of show the cultural differences. Here's a giant corporation, but there are, cultural differences to how people eat and who goes there and what's on the menu and all sorts of things. eat at the McDonald's, but we always take pictures, and we feel bad taking pictures, so I order a Diet Coke.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, everything's been, this conversation's been really great. We've definitely learned a lot about you itself, too, and also we all just used our whole opinions and kind of just shared our whole experience and perspectives that we've had since we've been abroad, too, and traveled around a lot. So it was good to kind of pass our ideas more to someone else who's been trying to plan more about their study abroad as well.
In next episode, let's talk about travel not related to study abroad, so we could talk about some new and exciting places for us to dream about going to
Yes.
someday.
That's actually,
Yes,
I
for
was thinking
bucket
about
list.
this whole time. I know we want to close the podcast, but I want to ask, what's the future looking like with study abroad and locations?
Yeah.
And do you have any like personal preference that if you were in our position, where would you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, I always say go places that you wouldn't have the opportunity to go, kind of on your own. Vietnam program, where next year in 2027, for the first time ever, we're going to have a program, a Maymester that includes Fiji as one of its locations.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty sweet, right? So those places are exciting to me. I mean, obviously, we're going to stick to some of our core locations in Italy and Spain and Australia and Japan.
Thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure to follow us at beyondtheborders.pod to see our next updates on the upcoming episodes, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you again, Palis.